Take a close look. A dog runs over and starts licking the wastewater on the ground. A nearby security guard notices and picks up a stone to chase the dog away. The dog, terrified, runs away in panic. But little did the guard know, the dog would seek revenge. That night, the dog turned into a zombie dog. It blocked the guard on the road. The guard tried to use the same trick. He picked up a stone and threw it at the dog, but this time, the zombie dog wasn't scared at all. It lunged at him directly. Luckily, the guard narrowly escaped. He went home and started eating his meal, but his wife kept nagging beside him. How can a grown man get bitten by a dog? She didn't notice anything unusual about him, but the next moment, when he looked up, his eyes were completely white. He lunged at his wife, pinning her to the ground. The daughter grabbed a frying pan and struck her father on the head. Yeah! But unexpectedly, her father got up again. Terrified, she quickly shut the door. Take a close look. A dog runs over and starts licking the wastewater on the ground. A nearby security guard notices and picks up a stone to chase the dog away. The dog, terrified, runs away in panic. But little did the guard know, the dog would seek revenge. That night, the dog turned into a zombie dog. It blocked the guard on the road. The guard tried to use the same trick. He picked up a stone and threw it at the dog, but this time, the zombie dog wasn't scared at all. It lunged at him directly. Luckily, the guard narrowly escaped. He went home and started eating his meal, but his wife kept nagging beside him. How can a grown man get bitten by a dog? She didn't notice anything unusual about him, but the next moment, when he looked up, his eyes were completely white. He lunged at his wife, pinning her to the ground. The daughter grabbed a frying pan and struck her father on the head. Yeah! But unexpectedly, her father got up again. Terrified, she quickly shut the door. To his surprise, the zombie felt pain. It finally let go. He panted heavily and struck again with the stick. The blow was so hard it broke the stick. The blood splattered as the zombie struck him to the ground with a single blow. Fortunately, the director handed him a wooden plank just in time. With all his strength, he struck the zombie, sending it tumbling off the cliff. As Big Zhuang stood there in shock, he looked up and saw a little girl standing by the window. Looking closer, he realized she had also been infected. In the next moment, she leapt onto him. Luckily, Big Zhuang reacted quickly. He threw her into a trash can. Afterward, he hopped onto his 125cc motorcycle, ready to leave the area. But the zombie from earlier climbed back up and grabbed onto the motorcycle. Big Zhuang had no choice but to kick at it while riding. He dragged the zombie for several dozen meters, before finally kicking it off and losing it. By now, the streets were in chaos. Zombies were everywhere, attacking pedestrians. In the supermarket, people were frantically hoarding food. Meanwhile, Big Zhuang armed himself and prepared to search for his sister with a friend. Not long after, the two of them accidentally stumbled into a house where they found several doctors studying the infected. At that moment, Xiao Mei stepped forward and said she knew where Big Zhuang's sister was being held. It turned out that a few days ago, Big Zhuang had offended a politician. That man had ordered people to capture his sister. Coincidentally, that man was Xiao Mei's father. Under Big Zhuang's threat, Xiao Mei had no choice but to accompany him to her father's house. Meanwhile, Big Zhuang's sister was in danger. She was trapped in a swimming pool, while two zombies on the shore glared at her menacingly. At the critical moment, Big Zhuang and the others arrived just in time. Seeing the ferocious zombies, Big Zhuang, with his godlike marksmanship, shot one down with a single bullet. Without hesitation, he jumped into the water to rescue his sister. As they climbed back onto the shore, a female zombie approached them. In the chaos, Big Zhuang quickly sprayed her with water, and everyone realized the zombie's weakness. They were afraid of water. Big Zhuang swiftly pulled out a gun from behind his waist and finished her off. At that moment, Xiao Mei mentioned that there were several doctors at her father's house and asked Big Zhuang to help escort them to the hospital because only they could create the cure for the virus. Under Big Zhuang's leadership, he and Uncle Beard returned to the residential area. Suddenly, a zombie grabbed Uncle Beard's leg, but Big Zhuang quickly shot it away with a single bullet. Uncle Beard was so scared he dropped his gun on the ground. Soon, Big Zhuang located the doctors they had come for. The group hurriedly ran out and got into the car, but the vehicle couldn't stop, as zombies lurked everywhere nearby. They had to jump in while the car was moving, but some were not fast enough, and one of them was taken down by a zombie that leapt out from the side. In the car, Xiao Mei noticed a blood stain on one companion's chest. The bespectacled man said, "Don't worry, I'll check it for you." He lifted the companion's shirt, and sure enough, found bite marks from a zombie. Feigning calm, he reassured everyone, "It's fine," but secretly opened the car door and suddenly pushed the infected person out of the vehicle. The others tried to stop him, but it was already too late. The bespectacled man justified his actions, saying it was for everyone's safety. He then suggested that everyone in the car check for wounds. At this point, the group had no choice but to comply. However, when the bespectacled man rolled up his own sleeve, he discovered a small bite mark. Terrified, he quickly pulled his sleeve back down and kept the discovery to himself. This shows that people are inherently selfish. The car continued driving until they reached a monastery, but the road ahead was already blocked by zombies. The creatures swarmed the vehicle, climbing onto the car and surrounding it entirely. Big Zhuang quickly pulled out his secret weapon, opened the car's roof, and began taking down zombies one by one with precision shots. With a swift motion, he pushed back the zombies that had climbed onto the car. Uncle Beard, seeing the situation, threw him 2 pistols. Big Zhuang leapt into action, transforming into a super warrior. However, the sound of gunfire attracted even more zombies to the area. Big Zhuang had no choice but to retreat back into the car. In no time, the zombies surrounded the entire vehicle. Big Zhuang told the driver to step aside and took the wheel himself. Facing the horde of zombies, Big Zhuang showed no fear. The car spun in a dramatic 360-degree turn and sped its way into a parking lot. Big Zhuang floored the accelerator and rammed into a fence. Then came a classic drifting maneuver, sending some zombies flying on the spot. Big Zhuang kept spinning the car in place, but the zombies clung to it like superglue, refusing to let go. No matter what Big Zhuang tried, he couldn't shake them off. If only love in real life were this unbreakable, wouldn't that be wonderful? At that moment, Big Zhuang spotted a door up ahead. He pressed the pedal to the metal, and with perfect driving skills, managed to shake off all the zombies. Escaping the horde, the car sped along until the group finally reached a spot opposite the hospital, but the sight before them left them utterly shocked. The ground was teeming with zombies, packed as densely as a swarm. To reach the hospital, they would have to pass through the zombies. Now what were they supposed to do? Under Big Zhuang's lead, the group made their way to a basement, planning to navigate through it to the other side. But danger struck unexpectedly. A shadow darted toward them. Big Zhuang readied himself for an attack, only to glance up and find a zombie right above him. In an instant, the zombie pounced and knocked Big Zhuang to the ground. Fortunately, he kept his cool and shot it dead in one swift move. As they continued forward, gunfire rang out nearby. It turned out to be another surviving security guard. The guard informed them that the basement didn't lead to the hospital. Frustrated, they entered a supermarket to gather tools. But just then, the bespectacled man who had been bitten earlier began to mutate. He grabbed Big Zhuang's sister and fled. Luckily, Big Zhuang noticed in time, but he was still a moment too late. The zombie sank its teeth into his sister's neck. Big Zhuang dashed into an elevator and, with a flying leap, punched the zombie mid-air, knocking it down. Looking at his sister lying on the ground, Big Zhuang was consumed by rage. Clenching his teeth, he viciously kicked the zombie. Yeah! He slammed the zombie against a nearby chair, landing blow after blow. Finally, he lifted the zombie high above his head and hurled it with all his might. At this moment, the companions arrived. One of them aimed a gun at Big Zhuang's sister, intending to end her life. Big Zhuang raised his own gun, standing off against them. He wouldn't let anyone harm his sister. Determined, he carried her into a separate room to isolate her. Xiao Mei entered the room and hurriedly bandaged the sister's wound. Miraculously, although she had been bitten, she didn't mutate. The doctor speculated that she might have antibodies in her system. They drew her blood and examined it under a microscope. As suspected, the results confirmed the presence of antibodies. Now, if they could get her to the hospital across the street, they might be able to develop a cure. To save countless infected people, Big Zhuang found a fire truck. Knowing that zombies were afraid of water, he planned to use the water to escort the group across. Sure enough, the zombies hesitated to approach as the water sprayed at them. Big Zhuang successfully got his sister across, but as always, fate had other plans. The water on the fire truck ran out. Oh no, the plan was in trouble. Worse still, Xiao Mei hadn't made it across yet. What now? Even more misfortune struck. Some zombies had already snuck in. At that moment, Big Zhuang descended like a hero, leaping from above onto the roof of a car. Xiao Mei was completely smitten by this man. Big Zhuang quickly engaged in a fierce battle with the zombies. Soon he ran out of bullets. Undeterred, he fought them barehanded. To save the woman he loved, he risked his life without hesitation. Suddenly, a zombie lunged from above, knocking him to the ground. But with the strength of a protagonist's plot armor, Big Zhuang fought his way out. He finally made it back inside the iron gate, but unfortunately, his arm had been bitten. It turned out that during the earlier scuffle, the zombie had secretly bitten him. Not long after, Big Zhuang began to mutate. He didn't want to turn into a zombie and hurt Xiao Mei. He begged Xiao Mei to end his life immediately before he lost control. Xiao Mei raised the gun, but hesitated, unable to pull the trigger. Finally, with a single gunshot, what do you think? Did Xiao Mei shoot Big Zhuang? Meanwhile, on the other side, the doctors finally developed the cure, but it was too late. In the movie's final scene, a hand rests on the car. Do you think there will be a sequel?